American Top 40.
This is Casey on American Top 40, and one Sunday in Detroit in 1955, a 12-year-old girl sang at a church service and was paid $15. Next day, she blew it all on the best pair of roller skates she could get for the money. She's 27 now, still singing for pay, and making enough in one appearance to buy skates for every team in the professional roller derby leagues, as much as $25,000 for a single concert. That's how it is when you're Queen of Soul. At number 37 this week, here's Aretha Franklin.
Holy Moses, I have been removed. I've seen the specter.
It debuted at number 37 last week, same position this week. Aretha Franklin and Elton John's classic, The Border Song. And the countdown continues.
Casey's Coast to Coast.
You know, if it's true that you have to suffer before you can sing soul, then this next artist was getting ready at a fairly young age. When she was just 6 years old, her mother deserted the family and 4 years later died. That's a lot of heartache for one person to carry around inside. But this lady shares it. You can feel some of that hurt in every song she sings. At number 2, here's Aretha Franklin. From Detroit, Aretha Franklin with one of 24 chart records she's had over the past 5 years, and it places her at number 2 in our special countdown.
Casey's Coast to Coast.
Well, now on American Top 40, listen to this. In '68, this song won for the artist who sang it the first Grammy Award given in the category Best Rhythm and Blues Vocal Performance by a Female. Of course, that lady is the Queen of Soul, Aretha Franklin, and the song was Respect, which also was Aretha's first number 1 hit on the pop charts in 1967. But here's the really incredible part of her achievement. Altogether, she's won 10 Grammys. But in the 8 years the Grammy Award for Best Rhythm and Blues Vocal Performance by a Female's been given, Aretha has won every single year, which not only makes her the only winner in that category, but gives her 8 consecutive Grammys. And no one in the 17-year history of the Grammy Awards can top that.
Now on with the countdown. Number 17.
Well, how do you measure a talent that's larger than your yardstick? Take Aretha Franklin. She's had more gold singles than any other female singer in chart history. And the Recording Academy has voted her the Grammy for Best Rhythm and Blues Vocal by a Female for an unbelievable, unequaled 8 consecutive years. Here she is, the 17th biggest artist of the 70s. Aretha Franklin, and one of her 14 gold singles, Until You Come Back to Me. She ranks at number 17 in our special survey of the 40 most popular artists of the 70s. And the countdown continues.
Casey's Coast to Coast.
I'm Casey Kasem. Now on American Top 40, we're up to an AT40 extra. An extra by the biggest female singer in the history of the Billboard Soul Chart. A superstar who's about to perform on Broadway singing the songs of a woman who had almost no chart success at all. The superstar we're talking about is Aretha Franklin. And just a few weeks ago, Aretha began rehearsing a musical tribute to a woman who's never hit the soul chart and who hit the pop chart only twice. The biggest of those 2 pop hits climbed no higher than number 69, and it sounded like this.
He's got the whole world right in his hand. He's got the whole wide world in his hand.
From 1958, that's the voice of the late Mahalia Jackson, a woman who is considered the greatest gospel singer of all time. She died in 1972 at the age of 60. Well, Aretha Franklin is playing the part of Mahalia Jackson in a musical tribute called Sing Mahalia Sing. In the tribute, Aretha performs 30 gospel songs made famous by Mahalia, and she'll be accompanied by a 50-voice choir in the Broadway production. Aretha says there was no question at all about her doing the role of Mahalia Jackson, and she went on to say, "Mahalia was a family friend. I met her when I was a child. She and my dad used to work together. I remember how she would come to our house in Detroit and cook greens and hot cornbread. More than that, though, I can never forget how she influenced my career as a singer." Now, as an AT40 extra, here is Aretha Franklin with her number 1 soul and pop classic, Respect. Aretha Franklin with her #1 soul and pop classic, Respect, on American Top 40, an AT40 extra, as the countdown continues.
American Top 40.
I'm Casey Kasem. Now we're up to the song by the superstar who had plenty of music in her diet when she was growing up. This is the story of Aretha Franklin's early years. Aretha has said that the greatest influence on her career was a Christian minister, her father, the Reverend C.L. Franklin. Aretha grew up in Detroit, where her father was pastor of the New Bethel Baptist Church. In addition to being a pastor in Detroit, the Reverend Franklin was also in demand as a speaker on the gospel circuit. And as a star, he was surrounded by other stars. Aretha says that seated at the Franklin dinner table often were legends like Quincy Jones, Dinah Washington, and Mahalia Jackson. She says she particularly remembers Mahalia, who would always head straight for the kitchen and start cooking a pot full of greens and the best fried chicken Aretha has ever tasted. Aretha also remembers the first time she sang solo in her father's church. She was 8 years old, and after she had sung her song, a member of the congregation, the great Dinah Washington, raised her hand, pointed at Aretha, and said, quote, "That one, CL's girl, that's the one to watch." Well, Dinah Washington was right. Aretha Franklin has become one of the biggest stars on the pop and soul charts of all time. And here she is on American Top 40 with the song Who's Zoomin' Who? At number 28, here's Aretha Franklin. Aretha Franklin at number 28, second week in the survey, moving up from 35 with Who's Zoomin' Who? These are Billboard's 40 biggest. And now we're up to the latest hit by a pop and soul superstar who's lost a number of major jobs, including 2 starring roles on Broadway, because she's afraid to fly. And a lot of big stars have that problem. David Bowie, for instance, won't fly. And English star Kate Bush travels only by train, boat, and car. Most stars who have this phobia, called aerophobia, get around the problem by careful scheduling. But sometimes that doesn't work. In the case of Aretha Franklin, she says that she used to fly a lot because for personal reasons, she often had to return to her home in Detroit within 3 or 4 hours. Then one night in 1983 on a late flight home, Aretha's plane did what she called a dipsy-doodle, and that shocked her into a chronic case of aerophobia. So when Aretha was offered the starring roles in Broadway plays about the lives of gospel singer Mahalia Jackson and blues legend Bessie Smith, she finally decided to turn them both down. She also had to say no to the 1984 Democratic Convention in San Francisco. But these days, Aretha says she's on the verge of flying again. She says she's beating her aerophobia with the help of 3 things: a therapist who specializes in phobias, a kit specially designed for aerophobics by the Federal Aviation Administration, and a videotape of a Phil Donahue show that dealt with the fear of flying. She reruns the tape every day. Aretha says, quote, "I plan to begin soon with a short flight, then get back into the swing of it." At number 11 in our survey, here's Aretha Franklin with Who's Zoomin' Who?
Tell me sweet things.
The title song from the album Who's Zoomin' Who? That's Aretha Franklin on American Top 40. Her 6th week in the survey, she moves from 16 to 11.
Casey's Coast to Coast.
Now we're up to the superstar who started out singing gospel, and we're about to hear a sample of that singing. She grew up in Detroit and sang at the New Bethel Baptist Church, where her father was the pastor. These recordings were made back in 1956, when she was only 14 years old. Listen.
While the Lord is ready, it's so warm in your veins.
That voice sound familiar? It should. It's the voice of a 14-year-old who later gave us classic hits like I Never Loved a Man and Respect, and much more recently took us down the freeway of love. The voice of the Queen of Soul, Aretha Franklin. Now, here's Aretha at 43 years old singing her latest pop and soul smash. At number 11, Who's Zoomin' Who? Zoomin' Who, falling out of the top 10 this week from number 8 to number 11. It's Aretha Franklin's 35th top 40 hit.
Casey's Coast to Coast.
Now we're up to the latest hit by a female superstar who once made herself an unwelcome guest at a fancy Miami hotel. this is the story superstar Aretha Franklin told writer Jerry Hershey. Now, Aretha said she's always loved to eat. One of her favorite foods is pork of any kind, prepared any way. She loves ribs, she loves pork chops, she loves pig's feet. In short, she loves pork. Well, some years ago, Aretha was recording an album at a studio in Miami, and she was staying at a hotel which, as a courtesy to its many Jewish guests, observes very strict dietary rules, among them not allowing any pork in the premises. Well, Aretha spent the first few days snacking on tasty kosher items like bagels and herring, and then she got a craving for the food she loved so much. So she drove over to the soulful side of town and bought a big brown bag of pickled pig's feet, 15 pounds of pig's feet. Then she drove back to the kosher hotel, left her car with the attendants, and headed for her suite, clutching her precious bag of pig's feet. But by this time, the juice had soaked through the paper bag, and as Aretha walked across the lobby, 15 pounds of pig's feet went splattering all over the marble floor. As the hotel's guests gaped in horror at the forbidden food, Aretha made a fast exit to her room. She was so embarrassed, she didn't show her face in the lobby until the next day. I suppose the moral of the story is you better watch out where you pig out. This week, Aretha Franklin is at number 7 with her duet with George Michael. I Knew You Were Waiting. I Knew You Were Waiting. British star George Michael and American star Aretha Franklin, looking up to hit number 1 in Britain, Holland, Greece, Australia, and for the past 2 weeks here in the USA. This week, they fall to number 7 as the countdown continues.
Casey's Coast to Coast.
Continuing now with a special edition of American Top 40, I'm Casey Kasem. This is the triathlon of rock and roll. The 40 biggest artists on the Billboard chart, hitting in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Long-distance runners on records. And on we go.
Number 10.
Here's the woman the legislature of the state of Michigan, in clear violation of the U.S. Constitution, proclaimed queen. The resolution said, "Be it known, one and all, that this woman is known to be the Queen of Soul," and further named Michigan's envoy to the world of music and entertainment. And a queen she is, with 69 top 40 hits on the black singles chart and 40 top 40 hits on the pop chart. Lady Soul, Aretha Franklin at number 10. Aretha Franklin cruising down a freeway of love. The Queen of Soul parks at number 10 among our endurance champs. This is an American Top 40 special, the triathlon of rock and roll. I'm Casey Kasem, counting down the legends of longevity, and the 9 biggest are heading this way.